Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Irina and I made it a tradition to read a book and then record a short video about it. I've collected all those snippets and made a longer video. Watch me read throughout the year and enjoy.
Let's kick the year off with something not very nice, and hopefully it gets better by the end of 2025. And this is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I was expecting something different from it. Last year, I read It Ends With Us series by Colleen Hoover, and that was such an easy read. I could finish the book in a week's term, but there were lots of phrases that we could use in our everyday life, like to put the car in drive, So something really, really useful and handy. While here, I didn't find anything of this sort. Only the first chapter was filled with some interesting phrases that might be captivating for an eye of a philologist, a person who works with languages, but nothing which can be used by an average person. The phrase that still remember from the very first chapter was, her heel didn't clear the curb. And it took me a while to wrap my head around it. I even had to ask my Canadian friend to dumb it down for me. It turned out that clear was basically used about the space. Yeah. So there was not enough space for her to jump over the curb. But that's not the phrase I would use on a regular basis, right? So nothing really handy, nothing really useful. By the end of the book, it got really, really simple. So the language, I mean. On the other hand, it was so unputdownable. I couldn't stop reading it, and I finished it, I think, in 9 days, something like that, which is really, really fast for me because I'm a slow reader. And I truly believe that this book is gripping, but it's just not my thing. If you remember the movie, which is called The Hidden Face, made in 2011, in Russian it's called Bunker, it kind of gives off the same vibe. It's this spicy mystery thing, spicy horror, spicy thriller, something like that. So I would give this book 4 stars out of 5 just because it's not the thing I usually enjoy. But at the same time, I'm sure that this book, this plot, this story will constitute a really, really good movie, something that they have been working on now. So let's wait and see. It's the end of February, the 19th of February to be precise, and I have just finished reading a book. The book that I had expected a lot from, because this author has got another book that I absolutely love. It's called About a Boy, and it shows us how mature our kids can be and how immature adults can be. I absolutely love that book. So naturally, I was expecting a lot from the next one. And that is Funny Girl by Nick Hornby. This book covers a story of Barbara, who got a title of Miss Blackpool back in 1964, but she didn't want that. She didn't want to become a model, so she moved to London and she was trying herself in different jobs and positions. So her dream was all about becoming a comedy actress. And she ended up having her own comedy show called Barbara and Jim. So by looking at the title, Funny Girl, I was actually expecting that some fun begins somewhere in the middle of the book. But it turned out to be quite the opposite. What I could see in the book was the plethora of dialogues, conversations, that banter that is common and typical for Britain, that tittle tattle, and stuff like that. So I was not hooked. I was literally um, 2/3 into the book, and I was dreaming of finishing reading it. And only the final 100 pages, that's where the action started. Yeah. So, and then we see the plot twist and the actions and the characters, the way they develop. What I could see in the book, yeah, what I could get from the book is this idea that there was this simple girl who was dreaming of becoming something more, becoming an actress, becoming famous, being something more than she was actually there, back there in Blackpool. And so she did. She became an actress who was famous, who was known to the audience back there in Britain. She was not known internationally, but whatever. But she ended up hiding her own personality. Even when she went to the cafes with her mom, she was hiding herself, covering her head with a scarf, and everything. So basically, she started realizing that everything that she was dreaming of, becoming something more, was totally useless. She started enjoying the little pleasures of life, like working with a great team, being right here, being right at this moment, in the moment, right? So, and that's it. That is the major thing that I could see in the book. Everything that seems to be fun in the very beginning turns out to be extremely ordinary in the end. And we get to love those ordinary things. Yeah. So the ordinary things, little things of our life. And that is pretty much the idea of it. Although it's great, I love the idea again, but it was very, very hard for me to read this book. It was really slow paced. It's totally up to you. If you love reading books that are nice and slow with lots of conversations, dialogues, yeah, so nothing gripping, nothing extraordinary, that's the book for you. And my plan for March is to read a book that I don't need to delve into the environment, into the setting. I want to read something familiar, something that I have already seen. I'll see you in March. Okay, here we are again. It's the 8th of April, and I have just finished reading another book. But I'm going to start with a little backstory. Do you remember in January, February, I was reading the book called Verity by Colleen Hoover? At the end of the book, there is this section, acknowledgements, with the 26 numbers, so 26 people the author is grateful to. And number 9 is E.L.James. E.L.James, your successful career does not impress me nearly as much as your soul. You're amazing in so many ways, but my favorite thing about you is the love and appreciation you have for your readers. You set a great example to authors everywhere. And that was quite fascinating because the next book that I was going to read is 50 Shades of Grey, Part 1. E.L.James is a former TV executive, wife, and mother of two based in West London. Since early childhood, she dreamed of writing stories that readers would fall in love with, but put those dreams on hold to focus on her family and career. She finally plucked up the courage to put pen to paper with her first novel, 50 Shades of Grey. She is also the author of 50 Shades Darker and 50 Shades Freed. I was kind of surprised to figure out that E.L. James is actually a woman. And then when I started reading this book, I knew what to expect from it because so I know what the movies are all about. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be rough. But I was not expecting much from it in terms of the language. But the equipment in the Red Room is not everything I've learned in the book. Whenever I read a book, I take some notes. It's either in a notebook like this, so you can see lots of different phrases, collocations, parts of the sentences, and stuff like that. Or I do it on my phone in the notes. And it's quite fascinating that the list of all those new, interesting, intricate phrases from the book, it is probably the longest one I have ever done. There are so many things, so many words that I've never used before, but I definitely will. I loved the language. This book makes me want to read part 2 and part 3. Here is another thing. I tried comparing this book to the translation we have in Russian, and it seemed to me these two books are totally different. The Russian one is not the 50 Shades of Grey I know. It's less intricate, it's simple, sometimes it's bland. Uh, I can see only the description of the actions. One thing happened, then another thing happened, then something else happened, and it's so boring. It's so like why would they do this to this wonderful book? So if you have ever read the book in Russian, please give the English one a go. I'm sure you'll have a totally different impression. And I'm starting another book. You will see. You'll see it soon.
A few updates. I've got my new lavalier microphone, which means the sound will be pretty much different. So I don't know if I'll manage to smooth it a bit. So let's see how it goes. I'm sure you will see the difference anyway. And I'll attach the link somewhere for you to follow it and watch the way I was testing it and trying it out and basically see the difference between the microphones. And today is the 8th of June, 2025, and it's 9 p.m., which is insane. It's still not very dark for me to record a video. Wow, cool. I'm so happy about it. And let's jump right into it. So, ta-da, I've just finished reading this book, P.S. I Love You by Cecelia Ahern. What can I say? So Cecelia Ahern is an Irish novelist. She's got a bunch of books which are pretty famous all around the world, but I've never read any books of hers. And I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea what it is about English and Irish authors, but I'm not excited to read them anymore because look at it. The book is 500 pages long and you can easily skip a good half of it. The book covers the story of Holly, who has lost her husband to cancer. The husband wrote 12 letters for her to open all through the year after his death so that she could cope with him passing away easier, let's say like that. Each letter was more like a motto for her to rely on and to basically to live through another month. And it's written on the cover. Sometimes it's about living life one letter at a time. And you know, it feels like this whole story would be better if it was a script for a movie. And I'm sure you've seen the movie, which is great, starring Hilary Swank and Gerard Butler. And I think it's just amazing. And that is the place for the book. Let it be the movie, not the book, because honestly, I tend to believe that every book deserves to have a deep thought in it, a deep message. Here it's more like a story where she is reminiscing, she cannot imagine her life without her husband. So not a really deep message. It was not enough for me. I wish there was more to it than just that. I, for one, found only a few phrases I could refer to. For instance, what's this? Holly's theory about the army. And what is it? Oh, that fighting for peace is like screwing for virginity. Nobody's life is filled with perfect little moments, and if they were, they wouldn't be perfect little moments. They would be just normal. How would you ever know happiness if you'd never experienced downs? That is pretty much it, but I have got something interesting as well. But I have got a sequel to the story. So it's the 23rd of June and it's finally summer here. It's not really hot though. It's been pretty chilly. The temperatures fluctuate and you never know what to wear, but I figured it would be just nice to, just to go outside and enjoy the nature and just chat for a while. There are those seagulls right above me, so I hope you don't hear them. And I'm gonna grab a bar of chocolate and then I'll just jump into my story. Yeah, there she is. Hello there. I've just finished reading Postscript by Cecelia Ahern. And I'm so happy that I actually did read the second part, the sequel, because the books are more than 15 years apart. The first one was published back in 2003, if I'm not mistaken, while this one was published in 2019. And you can definitely see and notice that Cecilia's skills have improved dramatically, significantly. She has become so good, and this book made me think a lot about love, death, about the way I see things, and stuff like that. I was making notes all throughout the book, so it was nice. Although I might admit that this book is not to everyone's taste, and it might be hard for you to read it if you have recently lost someone to cancer, because they talk a lot about it, different types of cancer and stuff like that. So might be quite challenging to read, but it is so worth it. So the book covers the story of Holly, and it's been 7 years since Jerry, her husband, passed away, and she's got a new boyfriend. Her new boyfriend has got a teenage daughter, and they are trying to basically juggle this kind of stuff. She works at a shop of her sister, and she's trying to figure out what to do. And then a bunch of people who are terminally ill find Holly, and they offer her to be a guide of their club. They all want to leave something after they are gone. And they are also thinking of writing letters. They call this club P.S. I Love You Club. And there are quite a few participants. The only thing that I didn't find um, relatable, let's say like that, and I find it really weird because there is this girl whose name is Jenica, and she is about 18 years old. She has got a little daughter and she cannot write. The action takes place in Britain, and I have no idea about the literacy rate in the country. But for real, like, are there still kids who cannot write and who don't go to school? I just probably need to check the statistics. It was kind of weird, but then again, it was cool because Holly was teaching her to write for the letters for her daughter, yeah, for Ginniga's daughter. I was absolutely thrilled and surprised when I opened the first chapter of the book and I found out that it started with the story of Penelope.
I mean, it's so fascinating because the next book that I'm going to read is, I already read a few pages. Oh my God, I love her style so much. So I'm gonna enjoy it as much as I can. So it's the 15th of August, and it's been a while since I last recorded a video because I was busy with work and a short trip to a neighboring city with my daughter. But I've got some good news too. I've read 2 books. Let's start with this one. You already know that Margaret Atwood is one of my favorite authors. I love her writing style so much. I really enjoy reading the books, even if they are this small and short. Yeah, so I mean, okay, we can already stop here. From the very beginning. Ага, записываю.
Hello, даже не знаю, что говорить.
Tell me something in English.
Book.
A book. Yes, a very good book.
Good book.
Okay.
But I read... Как называется? Как название?
Harry Potter?
Нет, Кай.
Kai? Kai.
Kai.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
You are reading, yeah, now.
Not reading.
I'm reading.
Mhm.
Okay. You're reading Kai. Do you like it? So? Okay. It happens. But I like this book from the very first page. Ты хочешь у меня быть на YouTube? Засветиться? Я могу не вырезать это.
Да, черненький экран, да, такой серенький. Бесцветный сделайте и этот...
Bloopers.
За кадром.
За кадром, да. Или неудавшийся кадр.
Все, я
Всё?
пошла.
Okay, thank you. Можно чуть-чуть больше. Bye-bye. So, from the very first page, I loved it so much. Now that I'm dead, I know everything. So, we see that the story is told from the perspective of Penelope, who is a wife of Odysseus. I don't want to delve into the story itself because we already know like a lot of it from Odysseus himself, right? But what was astonishing and even shocking for me in this book is that there were so many things that Penelope was trying to juggle with, you know, like the life in Ithaca when she was left alone. They're raising their son and everything, and having the maids, you know, and like being responsible for all of them, the people who were living there. And then she was left alone, and she was a woman, a very young woman, who married a man at the age of 15, as far as I remember. And then she was left alone for 20 years, and she was a faithful wife who was not willing to marry another man. And even when the suitors came into the city and all of them were younger, she was still faithful. She was still loyal to her husband. So, the most astonishing thing for me was this whole plethora of thoughts that she had and a plethora of ideas that were put into a woman's head back then. Let me just read this paragraph to you. But after the main events were over and things had become less legendary, I realized how many people were laughing at me behind my back. How they were jeering, making jokes about me, jokes both clean and dirty. How they were turning me into a story or into several stories, though not the kind of stories I'd prefer to hear about myself. What can a woman do when scandalous gossip travels the world? If she defends herself, she sounds guilty. So I waited some more. So basically, we understand that she was waiting her whole life for something, you know, for her husband to come back, for the things to clear out, for, I don't know, something, something to happen, something to change. And she was not in control of her own life. And then the way she was often compared to her cousin, whose name was Helen, is just something. My cousin Helen was much in demand. It didn't seem fair. I wasn't known for doing anything notorious, especially of a sexual nature, and she was nothing if not infamous. You know, it's just difficult, overwhelming for a woman to be compared, to be laughed at, to be in such a position as she was. So that's the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. Now, the second book that I've read, can you hear my dog snoring under the desk? Oh boy. The second book that I read is called The Savage Song by V.E.Schwab, and I hope I'm pronouncing her surname correctly. That's the way I've heard it. So, Schwab, V.E.Schwab. It was very, very thoughtful of her to introduce this whole setting, this whole environment full of monsters and people to the reader in a very nice, slow paced way. So I was not feeling I was choked, suffocated by the amount of details, you know. It was very, very natural. It was very nicely done. To be honest, this is the very first book of the genre that I've ever read. And I don't know how it happened, honestly. I've never been a girl who's into monsters, you know, blood, whatever it is. So, but I liked this book. This story covers the story of Kate and August, who are supposed to be rivals and foes, but they meet at school and they start falling for each other. They are not in love yet, but who knows what happens later, because this is only the first book of two. Yeah, so that's the duology. All Kate wants is to be as ruthless as her father, who lets the monsters roam free and makes the inhabitants pay for his protection. August just wants to be human, as good hearted as his own father, but his curse is to be what the humans fear. So, August is a monster who has got tally marks all around his body. He's managed to survive another day without falling into the dark, without hurting a human being. They are supposed to be rivals, but they end up being together, fighting for their own lives, you know, together. The ending was a little bit too bland for me, I would say. You know, they just parted and that's it. But at the same time, the whole story was very, very interesting, or was gripping, and I was hooked all throughout the story. I'm not sure I want to continue reading this series, but I definitely want to read more fantasy. I know there's a bunch of good books out there waiting for me, so right at the moment, I don't have any other fantasy books on my bookshelf, but I'm in two minds about the next book I'm going to read, whether it's going to be something easier, let's say like that, something down to earth, without this whole, you know, world that I need to imagine, or it's going to be something historical. So let's wait and see. Same place, different timing. It's the 25th of December. Merry Christmas to you all. It's funny that I'm actually filming this video today, because the last video you saw on my YouTube channel about books was also recorded on Christmas. So yeah, it's been a year. Quite a nice year, actually. So let's see. Let's see what we've got here today. I have adjusted my desk because I've been sitting a lot recently and I don't feel like I want to do that anymore. So I'll be moving around, showing you a few things, yeah, and talking. The last part of the video that you have just seen was recorded quite a while ago, in September, right? Or October, something like that. And since then, I haven't been really consistent with my reading, because it was kind of difficult to adapt to daylight changes, to everything that was changing so quickly. It was getting dark so quickly, and I couldn't read outside anymore because it was also cold. So oftentimes I had to read before going to bed. And that was not exciting either because I got excited, I got overstimulated, and I couldn't sleep at all. Yeah, that's the story of my life, something that I have to deal with, yeah, in winter. Yeah, but anyway, it's been quite a lovely year in terms of the books that I read, and these past 3 months have been just amazing. I was so satisfied with the books that I have chosen. And yeah, so let's see. Let's dive right into it. Feel Free by Zadie Smith. I have actually heard a lot of things about this author, and I heard that she was great and she has an amazing writing style. And once I saw this book, Feel Free, which is a collection of essays, I immediately got attracted by this. Yeah, so since I'm an English teacher, I also work with essays. I wanted to delve deeper into that. I wanted to have a look at this style, at the essays written by a native speaker. Yeah, and it was fascinating. Let me read out a few lines for you. How much joy can a person tolerate? How many kinds of boredom make up a life? Who owns the story of Black America? Should Justin Bieber be more like Socrates? And why is there a dead art collector floating in the swimming pool? These are all the questions covered in the book. She actually tries to find a solid answer for each of them. And I'm going to read out the uh, ideas that were the most astonishing to me, something that made me think a lot about stuff in the world, you know. So the first essay that I love is called Fences, a Brexit Diary. I walked past the school for the first time since I came home yesterday and noticed the wooden veil, for lack of a better word, that has gone up around the school. It made me so sad. I've lived in this area 40 years. I saw a wall go up outside the Jewish school 10 years ago, and then a few years ago at the Muslim school. But I never thought I'd see one up outside. I'm very curious as to how it came about, who asked for it, how it was decided, whether the parents are happy with it, and what officially is its purpose: security, privacy, or something else. An intemperate email filled with liberal paranoia. By contrast, the reply I received was sane and polite: privacy and pollution. And it made me think a lot about the things, you know, the fences that are created by people around public institutions, around their private lives, around, well, literally everything. Yeah, everything a person creates, we need to have a fence, at least here in Russia. So, yeah, it made me think a lot. What is the purpose of it? Privacy, pollution, or there is another answer to that? Another essay that I love is called Some Notes on Attunement. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Heedless luxury, socializing, worldly advancement, fighting, whoring, drinking, and so on. If you want a life that feels long, he advises, fill it with philosophy. That way, not only do you keep a good watch over your own lifetime, but you annex every age to your own. By the toil of others, we are led into the presence of things which have been brought from darkness into light. So make friends with the high priests of liberal studies, no matter how distant they are from you. It's getting darker, so I'm gonna switch on the lights. Zadie Smith is just amazing. She's good with wording. Her style is just impeccable. But soon I realized that I knew next to nothing about her setting, her environment, the artist she was into, the books she was reading, and stuff like that. So I had to Google a lot of things all along the way. So I spent a lot of time like looking for something because there were some comparisons and yeah, you know, references to different authors and artists and everything. And of course I wanted to understand her better. And yeah, so it took me more than 2 months to finish reading this book, which was quite a challenge. And after that challenge I had to read something lighter, something, you know, that wouldn't make me think a lot. And that was Vincent Joy by Lisa Jewell. And that was a very light book to read. I mean, the plot is not very twisted. There are no intricacies of the stories. The ending is pretty much predictable. It's a story about Vince and Joy who met when they were teenagers and they fell in love with each other, but they were parted due to the circumstances in their families. And then they met a few times in their 20s and in their 30s when they were already married and had their own families. But what is interesting about this book is that you see it's all covered with stickers and sticky notes. That was the first time I tried reading a book in a different way. Usually I take notes on my phone or just in some tiny notebooks. So I'm gonna record another video on how I work with all those phrases, collocations, and chunks. So stay tuned. And finally, last book of 2025, which is also going to be the very first book of 2026 because I'm only halfway through the book, like only 240 pages into the book. And I actually got it a long time ago, back in 2023, when I heard a lot of good things about this book. But I always kept it on the shelf because I was dreaming of the moment that I will get there. I will get around to reading it. So, and I never regretted my decision, you know, because it's been probably the best book of the year, The Nightingale by Kristin. And it's the book about two women who were living in the times of the Second World War, and they are actually in France, just trying to survive and somehow help people to get through this. Yeah, so and help themselves to get through this. So it's all about the destiny of women during the times of war. And I really want you to get into her, Kristin Hanna's wording, into her writing style. I want you to get the glimpse of her style. So I suggest we read together a bit, shall we? The policeman cocked his head. Go. Isabel clutched the collar of her drab brown coat. Although it was warm out, she didn't want to draw attention to herself tonight. One of the best ways to disappear in plain sight was to dress like a wren, brown, brown, and more brown. She had covered her blonde hair with a black scarf, tied in turban style with a big knot in front, and had used no cosmetics, not even lipstick. She kept her head down as she walked through a throng of men in French police uniforms. Just inside the building, she stopped. It was a huge space with staircases on either side and office doors spaced every few feet. But tonight it looked like a sweatshop. Desks were spaced so closely together that Isabel had to turn sideways to make her way down the narrow aisle to the empty desk he'd indicated. When she sat down and scooted close, she was elbow to elbow with the women on either side of her. The surface of her desk was covered with card boxes. She opened the first box and saw the stack of cards within. She pulled out the first one and stared at it. I'm gonna continue reading this book, which has already kept me awake for many, many, many nights. So cheers to Kristin Hanna and cheers to 2026. And I'm going to show you something. So this year was really, really productive for me in terms of reading. I have read 10 books in total, which is a whopping number for me because a few years ago, I was dreaming of reading some books some books, at least one or two probably, because I literally had no time to do that. But then I got really slow, with work and working with my students, and I had more time. So I delved into reading, and that was my way of escaping from reality, which is, on the one hand, is bad, but on the other hand, it's such a privilege to be able to read and to be able to enjoy all those amazing stories. Yeah, and just be able to talk about them. So thank you for watching this video, and bear with me for a second. I'm gonna adjust my camera a bit. I've got a pretty nice collection of 17 books, and I'm gonna read them in 2026. Not all of them, of course, but probably just some of them. And I don't know which one I'm gonna start with, but stay tuned and I'll see you in 2026.